could have landed two friends with lengthy jail sentences. But tonight, Matthew Swift and Ross McKnight are back at home with their families after being cleared of planning a high school massacre.
The jury at Manchester Crown Court believed the pair when they said they never had any intention of hurting anyone. Now questions have been raised over how the case ever came to court. Our chief reporter, Dave Guest, has the story.
They'd been in custody for nearly 6 months. They'd endured a high-profile trial. Now Ross McKnight and Matthew Swift faced a media scrum as they walked free from court, cleared of plotting mass murder.
I'd like to thank members of the jury for listening carefully to the evidence in this lengthy case. I'd also like to say thank you for giving them the verdict of not guilty. I would like to take this opportunity to thank my family and friends of my legal team who continue to believe in my innocence and have supported me throughout this difficult time.
At Audenshaw High, teachers considered Matthew Swift and Ross McKnight to be polite and courteous pupils. But in court they were cast as would-be murderers, keen to fill the shoes of Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold, the teenagers who committed the Columbine High School massacre in America 10 years ago. This friend of Matthew Swift says he never believed the teenager would have been capable of such depravity.
He's the kind of person that takes it so far, then at that point other people would drop it off, then he'd take it a bit further and then drop it off. So to be honest, I don't think he'd do it.
But the pair had brought suspicion on themselves. They'd spent hours writing journals apparently outlining horrific plans to commit an atrocity which they codenamed Project Rainbow. They wrote about blowing up the shopping centre in Denton before turning their attention to Audenshaw High, where they'd set off explosives before shooting everyone inside. When McKnight drunkenly told a friend about it, the police were called. The picture the prosecution painted of Ross McKnight and Matthew Swift wasn't recognised by staff here at Audenshaw High. Their names even adorn a roll of honour in the school hall.
These were high-achieving boys, so yes, we were surprised, but obviously the police required our support, something that obviously we're obliged to give.
In court, prosecutors said Matthew Swift had gathered instructions for making explosives. He and Ross exchanged incriminating computer messages, which were retrieved by the police and presented as evidence. But the pair insisted the whole thing was a teenaged fantasy. Today, the jury believed them. It took the jury just 45 minutes to reach their verdicts of not guilty to all the charges. As those verdicts were announced to the court, Matthew Swift's lip quivered. Ross McKnight showed no emotion. Then came the questions. Should this prosecution ever have been brought?
What they were mentioning to each other could never have been achieved, and they took no practical steps whatsoever to make it a reality.
In this case, we felt there was sufficient evidence to justify prosecution, and in the circumstances, it was in the public interest for that to happen.
The teenagers both say they now want to put all of this behind them and get on with the rest of their lives. Dave Guest, BBC Northwest Tonight.
You'd think the week couldn't get much worse for aerospace workers after yesterday's announcement that the BAE Systems plant at Woodford is to shut. Well, today the future of the Eurofighter built in Lancashire was thrown into doubt by the Conservatives.
The Shadow Chancellor George Osborne.
Two teenagers on trial for planning a killing spree at their school to rival the Columbine massacre in America have been found not guilty. A jury believes 16-year-old Ross McKnight and 18-year-old Matthew Swift, who claimed that their talk of killing thousands of people was just teenage fantasy. Emma Murphy reports.
They'd been accused of plotting to kill their friends and classmates. Their hate-filled diaries so dark, police believe they were intent on a Columbine-style school massacre. Yet Ross McKnight and Matthew Swift had always insisted their teenage rants were nothing more than fantasy.
I'd like to say that at no time any person was put at risk either at Audenshaw School or at Crown Point North.
Do you admit that you were stupid, Matthew?
This was merely a fantasy.
Ross, do you still have a hatred of humanity?
I would like to take this opportunity to thank my family and friends of my legal team. I would now like to put all of this behind me. Thank you.
What both boys want to forget is the accusation they would carry out murder on the scale of the Columbine school shootings. When Ross McKnight told a friend they would emulate the attack, police raided their homes. They found diaries which detailed how they would kill, gas masks, combat clothing, plans of the school layout entitled Ground Zero, and mobile phone footage of basic devices the pair had made. Those who defended the boys have questioned whether the case should ever have been brought.
What they'd written to each other demonstrated both their youth and the silliness of what they were discussing. What they were mentioning to each other could never have been achieved, and they took no practical steps whatsoever to make it a reality.
Both boys denied conspiracy to murder and conspiracy to cause explosions. They'll now enjoy freedom for the first time in months. And as they enjoy their freedom, the Crown Prosecution Service has been responding to the criticisms that they shouldn't have brought this case. They say that they feel it was as equally strong as it was serious, and that to pursue it was in the public interest and the way that the British justice system works.
Emma, thank you.